Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Sean, last time you left us with a cliffhanger on your experience with New Motion, I think. So, do we want to continue that?
I mean, I think most people know that I'm okay with talking trash as often as I'm allowed. So, yeah, let's continue. So, they're the only ones I know, right? And I'm convinced if there are other people in the space of wheelchair delivery and repair and whatever else you might call it, I have a feeling they all have serious opportunity. I don't believe the grass is greener on the other side, but I certainly want to find out for myself. So, as I mentioned, New Motion is my vendor or whatever. Well, when I use my chair, when I travel, it's often helpful to me as a walker, like in a hotel room or the cabin of the cruise or whatever. I can grab the back of the wheelchair and kind of lean on it and also furniture walk, right? So it works. Well, I realized over the last several months, the hinges that lock the back of the wheelchair, the seat, into place to keep it upright in a seat position has been getting more and more loose. And finally, on the recent trip you and I were on, realized it was completely broken. Like a valuable piece was not there anymore.
Right.
Well, that made it really iffy for me to lean on it as a walker.
Right.
So
because it doesn't like lock when
right?
So
it just anyway. So I decided, okay, I've got a cruise and a trip to Vegas coming up, so I'm going to take it in for a repair. I called New Motion to set an appointment, and they asked for my insurance, and I said, you know what, honestly, I would much rather pay out of pocket. So they're like, okay, then we don't need your insurance. Now, I realize that is probably foolish in terms of finances, but I also know that saves a lot of time. And knowing I only had 2.5 weeks or so before I wanted it back, and it was, to me, I thought it was probably a not expensive part, right?
Right.
So they're like, okay, then we'll move on. Made the appointment. A couple of days later, I dropped the wheelchair off the night before because I couldn't get there for my appointment time because of work. Anyway, they were fine with that. Yeah, leave it here. They call me a couple hours after my appointment time the next day, and they're like, hey, we gotta order your part. Come pick up your chair whenever you want. That was a voicemail. I call them back, and I'm like, so what? We gotta order your part. It's gonna take a little while. You can pick up your wheelchair when you like. And I'm like, well, can I just leave it with y'all? I don't need it every day. It's better if, I don't have to make multiple trips. Just save it. And the guy's like, oh, I gotta talk to my manager about that. So we'll have to call you back. And I'm like, okay. And then there was some other question. I can't remember what it is, but same response. Oh, I gotta ask my manager about that. I'll have him call you back. I'm like, okay. The end of the week. Okay, that was Tuesday. Now it's Friday. I haven't heard a name. So I wait till the following Monday because I forget. So now a full week goes by, and I call them, and I get their service center. You cannot get somebody from the branch on the phone. So it's some 1-800 centralized center.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, hey, what's going on with my chair? I haven't heard, what's up? The guy does his investigative research, gets into my account, and he's like, oh, we are waiting for payment so we can order the part.
Oh, but
wait a minute.
You have to make the payment.
You're telling me you've had my chair for a week, and I told you from the beginning I'm going to pay for this. Nobody ever thought about calling me to say, hey, here's what you owe. or pay it so we can order. We've just lost a week. And the guy's like, well, yeah, there's, we go through a system and we're just at that step in the system where you need to pay. And I'm like, how long would you guys have just let my wheelchair sit in the corner of your building until somebody realized, oh, maybe we should call this guy?
Yeah.
I was not happy. He escalated it because I asked him to. I paid the bill. He said, well, if someone call you back, also here's the phone number for the branch, because that was another complaint. Like, how do I call them directly? So he said, oh, now that your account's been paid, when you call that number, it'll reroute you. It did not reroute me. I got the same central like 10 minutes later. Now this guy I'm talking to was like, oh, because your account's been escalated, I can't talk to you. You have to wait for a manager to call you.
Oh my God.
So another 5 days go by. I finally just make a second trip in. I'm like, WTF, where are we at? What's it going to take? What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
So to me, long story short, New Motion as a company, not my branch, but as a company, is equivalent to a chicken who has lost its head.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's completely asinine. I just wanted to use that word again. But the way they operate and the system and the flow, I don't understand it. So the part finally comes in, central booking or central whatever calls me to say, hey, your part's in, let's make an appointment to get it repaired. And I just played dumb because in my head, I'm like, why do I need an appointment? You have my chair. Just fix it when it makes sense for your schedule.
And then call me when it's done.
Yeah, just how about you quit calling me? But I realized the left arm does not touch the right arm. So I'm like, okay, yeah, what's available? And they picked the day and time. And I said, sure, that works. Because I don't know any other way to help them understand that the way they're doing it is not efficient. But anyway, that's my beef with New Motion.
It's like dehumanizing when you just have to completely let go of reason and go limp and just let your body flow through their system. Yeah.
Whatever you say. And they were like, are you gonna, if you make an appointment for 11:45, can you be there with enough time to transfer out of your chair so we can work on it? And I'm like, yep, no problem.
You're like, you have my chair. Oh my gosh.
So not only are they backwards in the way they're approaching everything, but you can't even get in the building, as we talked about last week.
Yeah. Incredible.
Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well,
Go
Sean,
team.
let's move on to something a little more positive. We had a really great interview with our new friend, Jason Armstrong. Actually, I've been friends with him for a couple years, but I hadn't met him till last October. So anyway, Jay was diagnosed with cerebellar atrophy later in life, and he lives in the Philadelphia area. He's an author, a father of 3, and he has some encouraging philosophies on living beyond circumstances that we're all up against. Please enjoy our conversation with Jay. We're here with Jay Armstrong. Jay has joined us today. Sean's in town in Philadelphia, and so we're all together in this room, in the same room. It's really cool to be here with you. Jay, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So tell us why you're here. What's our connection? What's your story?
My story. I was diagnosed with cerebellar atrophy in 2013. And up to that point, I was like living a normal, in quotes, life. we had a house in the suburbs, 3 kids, white picket fence. Literally, it was life as normal. And then I got diagnosed in 2013 when I was having issues with some balance and I just didn't feel right. But the symptoms didn't really exacerbate until 2020. I've been living with this now really for, let's say, almost 13 years? No, I'm sorry, 11 years. My math was wrong. But it's been, sped up the process. Let's say the last 4 years, it's been harder.
Yeah.
But how did we meet? Well, you met some of my friends, and they were like, hey, do you know Kyle? And I was like, you know what? Actually, I've never met him in person, but he wrote a tagline for my first book and actually put what you wrote on the back cover. Yeah. And then we actually got to meet in person this October.
Yep.
At the bike event.
Hey, Jay, I want to back up a little bit because I think everybody writes a book, right? No offense to anybody that's ever written a book, but there's just books, right? But you said you wrote your first book and Kyle wrote an excerpt for it. So can you tell us a little bit more about your writing? Like that first book, I understand it's pretty popular. And then you've written a few more since.
Yeah. So since the first book, I've written 2, another book that has been published. And my third book will be out on Valentine's Day. Yeah.
2025.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And my fourth book will be out on April Fool's.
My
25.
goodness.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to write a book, but I haven't even got one out there yet.
Well, give it time.
Yeah.
Do you have a tip or two for Sean to get him off his butt to get that pen to paper?
Have fun. Really, have fun. I mean, there are a million, tips out there for writing books. But I think the number one thing is, really, you have to enjoy it. Think about it, we've all have worked out to a point where we just didn't enjoy it anymore. And then we, found a new routine or got some new equipment and we were invested. Why? Because at one point it wasn't fun. It became a job. Mm-hmm. So when writing is a job, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Have fun. Really, I tell people that all the time. I mean, for me, it's an escape. But if I can make myself laugh, then I know it's going well.
You know what? You make other people laugh too. I love the humor in almost every single sentence that you write. There's some really serious stuff and some thought put in here that I love, and we'll get into that. But if you don't deliver it with a little humor and make it, palatable for people, I think it's really tough for people to hang in there.
Before I got sick, I was a public school teacher. I taught for 17 years. And I learned that humor is a survival skill in the classroom. Mm-hmm. It really is. If you're not having fun, if you're not laughing, you're going to burn out. And now that I have sick and I got sick and I have this new life, I realize that humor is the thing that keeps me going. It really is. I mean, it is really easy to get upset. It really is. And you know that better than I do. I mean, how hard it is to navigate the day. So if you take everything so seriously, it's not good for you.
Yeah. So just so our listeners can understand, tell us about some of the challenges that come with cerebellar atrophy.
Sure. physically, it's, walking, balance. I feel like I'm on a boat. Everything I do, I'm out to sea. Everything from brushing my teeth to getting changed to getting mail. I'm on a boat. So the world is always moving. I have issues with speech. So sometimes my speech is clear. Other times, it's slurred. So I sound like not only am I a sailor, I'm a drunken sailor.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. I also have some motor skills issue. Fine motor skills. If I had to pick up a bead and then put it into a jar, I'd have trouble picking up that bead and finding the hole for the jar, dropping in.
Yeah.
So and then I have some eye issues. I have what's called nystagmus, so my eyes tend to vibrate at times, so.
So your books, from my perspective, are about how those challenges have shaped your outlook on life and the wisdom that comes along with that, the shape of your outlook. Can you tell us a little bit about how ataxia has changed your outlook on life?
Oh, that's a big question. There was a digestion period where I was just trying to make sense of this all. And I'm not talking about 2 months or 3 months. I'm talking years where I was starting to make sense of what this was. And on top of that, I've seen neurologists, I've gone to NIH in Maryland, and I mean, they've all hang in there, kid. There's never been there's
no take this pill and you'll be fine. Yeah.
And so I think what I had to do was let go of that old life. I mean, because before I was diagnosed, I played soccer in college. I played baseball up into my 20s. I was always athletic. So I relied on my physical ability. And then when I began to lose that was hard, really hard. And I had to let that life go. That was something that took years to let go. Do I still miss it? Absolutely. I'd be lying if I said, yeah, it's over with, It's like the girlfriend that got away. It's the one you think of every now and then. You can't let that go. But you have to really focus on the here and the now. Because I meet a lot of people who have a similar diagnosis as me, and they always have kind of the same questions of will I be cured? Will I be able to go back to what I used to? And I think hope is important. You have to have that, but you also have to let things go and realize that I have to let that go, and I can't look too far ahead because hope is not found in the future or the past. Hope is found right now. And you have to focus on right now. That's really hard, especially when you're let's say able-bodied and you're thinking about tomorrow. Again, I was the teacher, so as a teacher, your clock it's Monday, but I'm thinking about Friday. It's September, but I'm thinking about June.
Yeah.
You're always looking ahead.
Yeah.
And when you have an illness like this where there is no cure, yes, I can hope for a cure. I want a cure, but I can't live in that cure.
Yeah.
I have to live right now.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Right.
but it's possible.
So I'm curious, what would you say are some of your priorities right now? Like, how do you seize the day on any given?
And it's funny. I'm not trying to be like, it's very cliche and very popular, and people say it all the time, but they don't. It's hard to live, it is. Like I said, there are moments where I think about yesterday and I think about tomorrow, but I gotta worry about right now. Being here with you guys and talking to you guys, that's all that matters. And that's hard to do, but I have to stay in that space because that's what matters. So as the calendar turned into 2025, I was thinking about my next book, which actually turned into 2 books. And there's a theme in my life right now. I mean, I'm 40, how old am I? I'm 44, soon to be 45. And my oldest child is 16. My middle is 14. My youngest is 11. So when I was diagnosed, he was a month old. So time has been passing. And I'm now at home. I write for a living. So every day I get to see them go to school and then return. And then I've been thinking about how our nights are just simple, but so impactful. Even when we're not doing anything, it's like this life passes so fast. It really does.
Yeah.
So as I got into this new year and this mindset, I started thinking about how can I focus on right now? What can I do right now that would make me happy? Because happiness is not, I used to think, and I think a lot of naive young people think this, that happiness is a plane ride away. My happiness is in Sacramento. I've never been there.
Yep.
But I think
gotta be there.
You can't be happy in Philadelphia. You can't. Happiness is not out there. It's here. It's up to you. Happiness is not what I can buy or where I can go.
Right.
It's right now. And I think I started to think about this more because for me, travel is not fun.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's very hard. I don't look forward to traveling.
Right.
Because some people are can't wait to go away. I'm I don't want to go away. I want to sit on the couch.
You're I can't wait for you to go away.
Yeah, right? Happiness is right here, and my job is to find it.
This book, you graciously gave us a couple of books. This one is called Bedtime Stories for the Living. And I am curious, what do you mean by the living? Why is that part of the title?
So, good question. I'm glad you asked. 2 things. I explained this in the intro. That I've never...
You're dude, read the book at all.
I never have told my kids a bedtime story.
Okay.
And I'm a good father. I mean, a 7 out of 10, But I never told them that. So I saw bedtime story. So when I started writing that book, a lot of that book is about what I've gone through. Again, I was diagnosed with my youngest was 1 month. So he's I wanted to tell him who I was and what I've gone through. So a lot of those stories are before I was diagnosed, how my wife and I met. Now, there's the thread of my health all the way through, but I never told them a bedtime story. So you will see in that book, I write to them I would write letters to each of my kids about kind of where they're at in their like development, for the living, because you can't tell the dead a bedtime story. And bedtime, now, I have background in literature, so bedtime, sleep, death, it's all like to see that. So I wanted to write bedtime stories for a living.
And that's very logical.
So the title's a bit deep, yeah. I was trying a bit too hard with that person. I was a bit.
So tell us about some of the principles, maybe one or two points that you make in this book or in one of your others.
So if you don't mind, I actually have an excerpt from the new book that I can read to you.
Please do. That would be wonderful. Yeah.
So the new book is called You and 10 Other Gifts I'm Grateful For. So it's all about like being grateful about little things. So I'll read this and we'll talk.
Okay.
The chapter is called A Final Word on Gratitude. The secret to real lasting gratitude is to make it personal. Sure, we can all agree that things like the sun, water, indoor plumbing are amazing and essential. But if your gratitude doesn't come close to home, it can feel a little empty. True gratitude, I believe, comes from those quirky, specific, maybe even weirdly unique things that stay with you and lift you up when times get tough. So here's my challenge. Make a personal gratitude list. Think of it as your emotional survival kit for those hard days. Here's mine. Matthew McConaughey's voice. John Green's voice. The opening piano harmonica sound of Thunder Road. Teaching my son to achieve. My mom's homemade ice cream cake. Coldplay with Michael J. Fox performing Fix You at the 2024 Glastonbury Festival. The way my dog gets to the Zoomies at the same time every night. Michael Scott from The Office. Comedian Fiona Cawley's Instagram. Microwave popcorn handouts. My Spotify playlist. Reading my old handwritten notes to myself. The one and only photo of me doing stand-up comedy. The first and last paragraphs of The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Your turn. What's on your list? It doesn't need to be fancy or impressive. Sometimes the tiniest gifts are what bring the biggest joy.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And I swear, it's been said 100 times, you should sit down and write down 3 things you're grateful for. None of us ever do it, but you just wrote down, I don't know how many things there were, but those were great.
Thank you.
I like that. Yeah.
And I love how personal it is, because Coldplay, they're huge. Everybody loves Coldplay. Maybe not everybody, but the fact that you find a way for Coldplay to bring you joy, we could all find joy in the biggest or the smallest things.
Yes. And I don't know, like I wrote, I think lasting gratitude is finding things that only you are grateful for. I mean, everyone's grateful for the sun.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that feels like impersonal. But like something that is uniquely you.
Yeah.
I think is really important.
Yeah, and it seems like a piece of self-discovery, right? And like you use the sun as an example. That's like a cop-out, right? Like, think of something you're grateful for. Mother Earth. Like, no, I like that you say it's got to be unique. And I also liked when you said handrails, both me and John were like, yeah.
I love handrails.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. We end every one of our episodes with a note of gratitude. And it's just a really useful way to sort of bring yourself back to the center a little bit.
And where kind of my headspace is this year is like, how can you be grateful for the thing you wish never happened? I mean, the three of us, let's be honest. We wish things were different.
Yeah.
But they're not. So how can we be grateful? Is gratitude like reserved for like able-bodied people? Or can I be grateful in my state?
So tell us, like, how do we do that? Because it sounds like you've thought about that. What's your answer to how to be grateful for your condition?
Well, I think that you should make a list.
All right.
But seriously, don't think about what you can't do. Think about what you can do. You know, and find the amazing ability in those little things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
You know,
it reminds me of a poem. I'm gonna get it all wrong, but you can Google it if you're curious. There's something out there that says, and it's a whole list. It's like don't be upset that you gotta make your bed every morning. Be grateful you have a bed to sleep in.
Right.
And it kind of has that theme running through 10 or 20 different little sayings, and it's just shifting your perspective. Yeah, the walker sucks. Yeah, a wheelchair is not fun. Yeah, traveling is hard. But there are still things in every area of life that we can still find a lot of joy in and a lot of excitement for, just shifting our perspective a little bit.
Yeah. If I may, I was at one of my son's games. I can't remember what. And I remember looking at my shoes. And my shoe at that time was like old and scuffed up, and there was like a small little hole growing in it. I was like, man, my shoes are gross. And then I looked to my left, and the guy to my left didn't have a leg. He had no leg.
Yeah.
I guarantee he wanted my shoes. If I gave him my shoes, he would take my shoes. He doesn't have a leg. So I'd be grateful for my shoes. And yes, I wanted new shoes, but that put things into perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
I think about no matter what happens, I am still me. You are still you. And Sean is still Sean. And it's our responsibility to like make sure we recognize that and present that and find that part of ourselves that's still us, that's still unique.
Yeah.
No matter what this force, this outside disease does to our lives. So.
Yeah. And I can't do it all, but there are certain things I can do.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to focus on those is where your focus should be, right?
Yes.
Not on the things you can't do.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Outside of writing, which we've talked a lot about, you put a lot into it, whether it's being a father or, who you are to your family or your community or even bigger than that to the world. What are you most proud of outside of writing?
It's a big question.
Well, and maybe not most. What is one thing you're proud of?
And I can't say you're writing or my kids.
You could say your kids, yeah.
Actually, the weird time I can make a list.
Yeah.
But in my new book, I actually wrote about how I am grateful and I am proud that my kids are self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, a lot of people have no self-awareness at all.
Mm.
And they're of the age where it's easy to be a teenager and think you are the most important person in the world. And I realize now that they see me struggle and they're quick to like lend a hand.
Yeah.
So I am most proud that my kids are self-aware.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
They're not the best kids, but they are self-aware. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for your time this afternoon and coming out and talking with us.
Great. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
Keep up the good work, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Kyle, I enjoyed meeting Jay and that conversation, but I gotta tell you and our listeners, Jay brought his mom and dad into the room for that recording, and they were off in the corner, you know, took a few photos and whatever. But it was obvious to me that this adjustment for him and his family has been significant, and his parents are along for the ride and are incredibly proud of him. So I enjoyed meeting Jay, but I think I felt even more special meeting his mom and dad. So just a little shout out to the Armstrong family.
Well, and it seems like, you know, his mom, dad, his wife, his kids, his friends. I mean, he just has a really supportive network, right? And we all know how important that is. So, really cool. And you know what? I feel like you can't build a network like that unless you're a great person that is, you know, good with just everything life throws at you. So good on you, Jay. And we enjoyed meeting you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. Of course, that takes us into thank you notes. As many people know, we like to end every episode with a little bit of gratitude, what we call thank you notes. So, Kyle, who you saying thank you to today?
Well, this event that we went to in Philadelphia, it was at the Lincoln Financial Field. It's where the Eagles play. The Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl champs, right? And I've been there a few times for uplifting athletes, and actually that's it. For uplifting athletes like 8 or 9 times. Nice. And the staff there has always been so great. We had a couple brief conversations. They're always so nice, telling us where to go, but also just sharing a few moments, right? And some pleasant conversations. So anyway, thank you to the staff at the link.
Nice. Well, Kyle, on a similar note, related to that trip, we had to hire a recording studio to help capture some of these conversations. Well, maybe, I don't know that we had to, but it's a whole lot better to just have somebody that knows what they're doing than you and I try to figure it out, right?
Exactly.
So we hired Maniac Studios, and Dan came out and was with us for 2 days, or a day and a half, or whatever it was. And not only is Dan talented in what he's doing, but what I found to be really impressive was Dan was very attentive to the little things that made all the difference for you and I.
Right.
And our ability to move about the room or to go get a refill of water or whatever it may be. So he, without hesitation and without us having to ask him, he was like, hey, I'll go down to the lobby and get your next guest, or let me go grab that thing and get more ice. And he was a perfect help to what we were doing, and we didn't even have to ask for the extra. So Dan and Maniac Studios, world class in everything they do. So thank you to Dan.
Yep, I agree. It seemed like there was no learning period. We just jumped right. We only had 2 days, and it was not long before we felt good with Dan, and he was, really a part of the team. So, yeah, that was awesome. Thank you once again to Jay for sharing his perspective on writing and on family and on dealing with the rare disease. You can check out our show notes at twodisableddudes.com to find links to Jay and his books. Please share this episode with all of your friends if you like what you hear. Subscribe on all your podcast apps. Until next time, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.